One of the strongest signs that a woman secretly loves you is that she consistently finds reasons to stay connected. She may never come right out and say exactly how she feels. In fact, many women are careful about revealing deep emotions too quickly. They don't always want to risk rejection, appear too vulnerable, or expose feelings before they feel confident about where they stand. But even when her words remain guarded, her actions often tell a completely different story. That's why it's important to pay attention to patterns rather than isolated moments. Anyone can send a message once, anyone can start a conversation occasionally, anyone can show interest for a day or two. What matters is consistency. A woman who secretly loves you naturally looks for opportunities to remain part of your life. She doesn't want the connection to fade. She doesn't want long periods of silence. She doesn't want to become just another person in your contacts list. Because when emotions become involved, maintaining connection starts feeling important. You may notice that she reaches out for reasons that seem surprisingly small. She sends you something funny she came across. She asks a question she could have easily answered herself. She brings up a topic you discussed days ago. She checks in to see how something important went. She finds simple excuses to restart conversations. On the surface, these interactions may seem ordinary, but when you step back and look at the overall pattern, something becomes clear. She keeps creating opportunities for communication, and that matters. Because people naturally invest their attention where their emotions are invested. Think about your own life. When someone means very little to you, you rarely think about creating reasons to contact them. Days pass. Sometimes weeks pass. There is no strong desire to maintain communication because there is no emotional pull behind it. But when someone genuinely matters, staying connected happens almost automatically. You think about them, you wonder how they're doing. You remember things they told you, you look for reasons to interact. The same principle often applies when a woman secretly loves a man. Even if she tries to hide her feelings, her desire for connection frequently reveals itself through her actions. One of the biggest mistakes men make is assuming attraction only shows itself through dramatic gestures. They expect grand confessions, obvious flirting, or clear declarations of affection. Sometimes those things happen, but genuine feelings are often expressed in much quieter ways. They appear in consistency, they appear in effort, they appear in attention, they appear in the repeated choice to stay involved in your life. A woman who secretly loves you usually doesn't disappear for weeks and forget you exist. She finds ways to remain present, not necessarily every hour of every day, but enough that you consistently feel her presence. What's interesting is that she often doesn't even realize she's doing it. Her actions are not always strategic, they're emotional. She reaches out because she enjoys talking to you. She checks in because she genuinely cares. She maintains communication because losing contact feels uncomfortable. The connection matters to her, and when a connection matters, people naturally invest in keeping it alive. This is why effort should always be valued more than words alone. Anyone can claim they care, anyone can say they're interested, but consistent effort is much harder to fake over long periods of time. When a woman repeatedly creates reasons to stay connected, even when she doesn't have to, she's showing that your presence occupies space in her mind. And when someone continually finds ways to keep you in their life, their actions are often revealing feelings their words haven't expressed yet. As a woman continues finding reasons to stay connected, another sign often begins to appear. She starts paying attention to the small details about you. And while this may not seem like a big deal at first, it is actually one of the strongest indicators of genuine emotional investment. Most people only remember information that feels important to them. Think about how many conversations the average person has throughout a week. Hundreds of words are exchanged, countless topics are discussed, and most of that information quickly disappears from memory. People naturally filter out what doesn't matter and hold on to what does. That's why attention is such a powerful signal. When a woman secretly loves you, she often remembers things that others overlook, not because she is forcing herself to memorize details, but because her emotional interest causes her mind to pay closer attention. You might casually mention a goal you've been working toward. Weeks later, she asks about it. You tell a story about something that happened years ago. Months later, she remembers specific parts of that story. You mention your favorite food, movie, hobby, or travel destination in passing. Later, she brings it up without being reminded. These moments may seem small individually, but together they reveal a pattern. She listens carefully because what matters to you starts mattering to her. And that's what separates genuine interest from casual attention. Anyone can listen while you're speaking, but remembering is different. Remembering means the information stayed with her after the conversation ended. It means your words carried enough emotional significance that her mind decided they were worth keeping. This becomes especially noticeable when she remembers details that even you forgot mentioning. Perhaps she remembers an important meeting you had coming up. Perhaps she remembers the name of a family member you spoke about once. Perhaps she remembers something you were worried about weeks ago and checks to see how it turned out. These things happen because emotional investment creates attention. The more someone cares about you, the more closely they tend to observe your life. And it's not limited to facts or information. She often notices changes in your mood as well. She can tell when you're excited. She senses when something feels off. She notices when you're stressed, distracted, or unusually quiet. Sometimes she'll recognize these shifts before anyone else does. Why? Because people who care deeply pay attention to emotional details, not just surface level conversations. This is something many men overlook. They often focus entirely on obvious signs of attraction while missing one of the strongest indicators of all, genuine attentiveness. A woman who secretly loves you doesn't just hear your words, she absorbs them, she stores them. She connects them to future conversations. She uses them to understand you better. And over time, that level of awareness becomes difficult to fake. Anyone can give compliments, anyone can flirt, anyone can create temporary excitement. But consistently remembering the small details of someone's life requires something deeper. It requires genuine interest because paying attention takes energy, remembering takes effort, and effort naturally follows emotional investment. What's especially meaningful is that many of these actions happen without any expectation of reward. She's not necessarily trying to impress you, she's not always trying to prove anything. In many cases, she simply cares enough that your experiences become important to her. Your victories matter, your struggles matter, your goals matter, your opinions matter, your stories matter. And when someone begins treating the details of your life as if they matter, it's often because you matter too. That's why the small things should never be ignored, because while words can sometimes be misleading, consistent attention to the little details usually reveals exactly where someone's heart is. When a woman remembers the things that most people forget, she's often showing you a level of emotional investment that goes far beyond ordinary interest. As a woman continues staying connected and paying attention to the small details of your life, another powerful sign often becomes impossible to ignore. She makes time for you, regardless of how busy her schedule may be. Now, this doesn't mean she suddenly abandons her responsibilities. It doesn't mean she spends every hour talking to you or rearranges her entire life around your presence. That's not realistic and it's not healthy. What it does mean is that when someone genuinely cares about you, they consistently find ways to create space for the connection. One of the biggest misconceptions people have about relationships is the phrase, I'm too busy. The reality is that everyone is busy. People have careers, studies, family obligations, personal goals, responsibilities, and countless demands competing for their attention every day. Life can become overwhelming at times, but despite all of that, people still find time for what they truly value. A person who loves going to the gym finds time to work out. A person who values their career finds time to develop their skills. A person who cares deeply about friends and family finds time to stay connected. And when a woman secretly loves a man, she often finds time for him as well. The key word here is find, because time is rarely sitting around waiting to be used. Most people have to create it intentionally. That's why effort matters more than excuses. A woman who secretly loves you may have a full schedule, but you'll notice something interesting. She still checks in, she still responds thoughtfully, she still looks for opportunities to talk, she still makes room for the relationship, even if those opportunities are sometimes small. Maybe she sends a message during a busy day, maybe she calls when she finally gets free. Maybe she remembers something important and reaches out. Maybe she adjusts her plans occasionally so she can spend time with you. The specific action isn't what matters most. The consistency behind it is, because genuine feelings create motivation. When someone enjoys your presence and values the connection, spending time with you doesn't feel like an obligation. It feels like something they want to do. This is where many men get confused. They often listen carefully to what someone says, but ignore what someone consistently does. A woman might claim she's interested, but if weeks pass and she never creates time for you, those words lose credibility. On the other hand, a woman who repeatedly finds opportunities to connect is demonstrating her feelings through action, and actions are far more reliable than promises. What's especially important to understand is that effort doesn't always show up in dramatic ways. Sometimes it's subtle. She sends a message when she's exhausted. She remembers to check on you after an important event. She makes time for a conversation even after a long day. She includes you in moments when she could easily focus on something else. These small choices reveal priority, and priorities reveal emotions because people naturally invest their time where their hearts are invested. The truth is that time is one of the most valuable things anyone can give. Money can be earned again, opportunities can return, possessions can be replaced, but time is something nobody gets back. That's why giving someone your time is often one of the clearest expressions of care. A woman who secretly loves you understands this, even if she never says it directly. Her actions communicate it for her. She keeps making room for you because your presence adds value to her life. And when someone consistently chooses to spend part of their limited time with you, despite all the demands of everyday life, they're often revealing feelings that words haven't fully expressed yet because people always make time for the things that truly matter to them. As a woman continues making time for you and investing in the connection, another sign often begins to reveal itself. She becomes emotionally affected by your absence. This is one of the strongest indicators of genuine feelings because people rarely notice distance from someone who doesn't matter to them. Think about it for a moment. Every day, people interact with dozens of individuals, messages come and go, conversations happen, names appear on screens and then disappear. Most of those interactions leave very little emotional impact because there is no deep connection attached to them. But when someone becomes important, their presence starts occupying space in your daily life. You get used to hearing from them. You get used to talking to them. You get used to their energy. You get used to their attention. And once that connection becomes meaningful, their absence becomes noticeable. This is often what happens when a woman secretly loves you. As long as communication is flowing naturally, she may not fully recognize how important your presence has become. She simply enjoys talking to you. She enjoys spending time with you. She enjoys having you in her life. But when you become less available, something changes. The routine shifts, the familiar conversations disappear, the regular interactions become less frequent, and suddenly she becomes aware of something she wasn't paying attention to before. She misses your presence. Now, this doesn't mean she immediately confesses her feelings. In fact, many women will try to hide the emotional effect your absence has on them, but their behavior often starts changing. She may reach out unexpectedly. She may look for reasons to restart conversations. She may check in more often than usual. She may become curious about what you're doing and why you've been less available. The exact reaction varies from person to person, but the underlying principle remains the same. When someone genuinely values your presence, they notice when it's gone. One reason this sign is so powerful is because it happens naturally. You can't force someone to miss you. You can't convince someone to feel your absence. Either your presence mattered enough to create that emotional response or it didn't. That's why absence often reveals things that constant interaction can hide. When you're always available, people sometimes take your presence for granted, not intentionally, but simply because human beings adapt to what becomes familiar. They expect your messages, they expect your attention, they expect your consistency. And because it's always there, they stop consciously recognizing its value. But when that familiar presence becomes less available, awareness increases, the difference becomes noticeable, the contrast becomes visible, and emotions that were sitting quietly beneath the surface suddenly become easier to recognize. This is especially true when a woman has developed strong feelings that she hasn't fully expressed. She may have convinced herself she's just being friendly. She may have tried to downplay her emotions. She may have avoided thinking too deeply about how much you matter. But your absence has a way of bringing those feelings into focus because emotions become difficult to ignore. The person connected to them is no longer constantly present. What's important here is understanding that this isn't about playing games or intentionally creating distance to provoke a reaction. The point is not manipulation, the point is awareness. A woman who secretly loves you often discovers the depth of her feelings through the emotional impact of your absence. She realizes conversations feel different without you. Days feel different without hearing from you. The connection feels incomplete when you're not around. And those realizations usually happen because your presence had become more meaningful than she initially admitted to herself. Because when someone truly cares about you, your absence doesn't go unnoticed. It becomes a reminder of how much your presence actually meant. After seeing her find reasons to stay connected, pay attention to the small details, make time for you, feel your absence, and support your growth, there is one final sign that brings everything together. Her actions consistently match her feelings. This is perhaps the most important sign of all because actions remove confusion. Words can be influenced by emotion. People can say things they don't fully mean. They can become excited in the moment, make promises they don't keep, or express feelings that fade when circumstances change. Words matter, but actions reveal whether those words have real substance behind them. A woman who secretly loves you may not always express her feelings directly. She may be cautious. She may be waiting for the right time. She may fear rejection. She may simply be someone who struggles to communicate emotions openly, but even when her words remain limited, her behavior tends to tell the story, and the story remains remarkably consistent. She shows up, she invests effort, she pays attention. She remembers details, she makes time, she cares about your well being, she contributes to the connection instead of leaving all the work to you. These actions may seem simple when viewed individually, but when they appear repeatedly over time, they become powerful evidence of emotional investment. Consistency is what separates genuine feelings from temporary attraction. Anyone can be interested for a week, anyone can be excited for a few days. Anyone can show effort during the beginning stages of a connection, but maintaining that effort over time requires something deeper. It requires genuine care. This is why patterns matter so much. Many men become distracted by isolated moments. They focus on a single compliment, a single text message, a single flirtatious interaction, or single emotional conversation. Then they spend weeks trying to determine what that one moment meant. A better approach is to step back and look at the overall pattern. What does she consistently do? How does she repeatedly behave? What level of effort appears over time? Because people eventually reveal their priorities through repetition. If a woman secretly loves you, you'll often notice that her actions continue pointing in the same direction. She doesn't just care occasionally. She doesn't just invest when it's convenient. She doesn't just show up when she needs something. Her behavior remains steady, and that steadiness creates trust. One of the strongest qualities of genuine affection is reliability. You know where you stand. You don't have to constantly guess. You don't have to chase. You don't have to force interactions. The connection develops naturally because both people are contributing. That's why effort is such a valuable indicator. A woman who secretly loves you usually doesn't leave all the responsibility on your shoulders. She participates, she creates opportunities, she nurtures the connection, she makes choices that demonstrate your importance in her life. Not perfectly. Nobody is perfect. Everyone has busy days, stressful periods, and moments where life becomes overwhelming. But despite those challenges, the overall pattern remains intact. Her actions continue aligning with her feelings. And that alignment is difficult to fake for long periods of time. Eventually, people become what they consistently do. If she consistently invests, consistently cares, consistently supports, consistently communicates, and consistently prioritizes the relationship, those actions reveal far more than any single conversation ever could. This is why paying attention to behavior is so important because real love is rarely hidden in dramatic moments alone. More often, it's revealed through repeated acts of care, effort, loyalty, attention, and presence. And when a woman's actions consistently reflect the feelings she may not yet be ready to say out loud, her behavior becomes the clearest confession of all. Because genuine love doesn't just appear in words, it shows up again and again in the choices someone makes every single day.